Let's check our cameras. Look good. Hi, everyone. Got my arm in today. Let's see if I can come in a little closer. I don't want to cut too much off. There we go. So let's see. Hi, Gloria. Hi, Lynn. Guys are watching tonight? Me too. Isn't this pretty? Oh, it's purple down at the end. There. Oh. There, how's that? And you'll notice the last two are shorter, and I left them like that to remind me to tell you why. I have to do that, otherwise I won't remember. So I just have to wait a couple more minutes. Let's see. Oh, you got my nose in there. That shows you how close I have to get to see the computer. Oh, now you got my head. There we go. Yeah, we just have a few more minutes. I made a little a little basket for my clips so that you didn't have to wait for me to keep clipping them back onto my pin cushion. I did that just for you. So this will be a class, a Saturday class. Not this Saturday. I think it'll be the next Saturday because I'm working, and it'll give and you know we start later, so it'll be a little easier project to work on. Isn't it cute? Oh, hi, Rhonda. So, Rhonda, you don't have Sewing Nancy on Thursday night, just Saturdays, right? The team is on Saturdays. And I'm excited to be able to show you. Let me get these out of the way. I happen to be on Crafter's Companion website, and I apologize for any glare, but there's no way around it. And I don't know how I came about it, but they have new fabric plates, and it comes as a set, A and B. And no, I'm not selling them, so I just wanted you to know. And I've used this quite a bit, and they look fine. It feels like they're very heavy, so it feels like if you took that, you know, your metal shim, and you probably glued, I don't know, 5 of them at least together. They're pretty substantial. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to use those. And all you use, oh, sorry, let me put them down before I blind you. All you do is use those 2 plates and clear plates. And see, they're A and, there we go, A and B. And A you put down first and B second. How's that? It's so nice that it's not warping all that, you know, the plastic shim, and then I can barely get it in the slot. So it's been like heaven all day. Just you, Rhonda. So Rhonda, I know you don't have a cutting machine, a Gemini, so these are 2.5-inch strips. Well, let's see. So if I think the easiest way to do it is this would be a rectangle. Well, they'd all be rectangles, Rhonda. And then you draw the line on the angle and stitch on it and flip it. I think you'll know what I mean. If not, I'll figure it out for you later. Okay, so this is Gemini Junior, and I'm not sure if that, no, you can't use the little gold because this one's too big. Okay, so let's see, we got 1 more minute. Did everybody make their Easter basket the other day? I didn't see any pictures up. Someone was asking if anybody was going to put their Easter basket pictures up. Sorry about that. That was my phone ring with, I'm sure, just a solicitor calling. So let's give it just a quick minute. Okay, Rhonda, you get what I'm saying? Okay, so, all right, so I guess let's get started. So I had this fabric. Let me get that out of the way. Let me set that over there. And let me just put those there for now. I know I don't have them in their little pockets. Stressed me all afternoon. Okay, so I had some fabric, or I got some fabric that's gradient. Isn't that pretty? So that's like 1 bolt, and then it goes back down again the other way. So that's how I got this. from one fabric. But when you cut it, you have to pay attention to, let's see, when you cut it on the, I'm using the junior plates, so I only cut this as long as I could get 2 out of, and I'll cut it in a minute and show you. So I'm using the 2.5 inch long rectangle from the Build-A-Block Plus. And if you don't have that, but you have the strip cutter, that, remember, it doesn't cut the ends. So these are cut 6.5, so it's 6.5. So if you're using the strip cutter set, you would just, and it's not for this fabric, it's for this fabric. You would just cut your strip. So you would fold it and cut your strip, and then you'd cut it to the 6-inch pieces. In this case, we're going to do this part first. This is the, so when I was sitting here thinking about the flying geese, I thought, well, now what size am I going to use? So I remembered we could look in our resource book, and there's our flying geese, and I used the 4.5 inch quarter square triangle, and I used the half square triangle 2.5. So I knew that my strip, my 2.5 inch strip, would be fine to go with my 4.5 quarter square triangle. So how's that for having your resource book? That came in handy. So this is the 4.5 quarter square triangle. And that's in your regular Build-A-Block dies. The only one that's in the plus is the rectangle. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cut this. So I had a strip, it's about 3 inches wide, and it's salvage to salvage, so you just cut straight up. And remember, you don't need to, you know how normally when we cut, we square off one end, make sure it's right, and then turn it and do the other. You don't need to do that because you're going to cut it a little bigger than your die. This doesn't have to be perfect. So let that go. So I'm going to see if I can put these down. That's not too bad a glare. Oh my God, it's glaring on me. So let me do it without the plate right there. So what I want to do is to get the most out of my strip is I don't want to just fold it and then have enough left over that I could have got one. See, I can only get 4. But if I open it up, and I'm going to try to do this facing you, and I'm a little past, and I want to make sure I've cut off my salvage. I'm a little past my die. I'm telling you, don't skimp right to the edge. It never works out well. And I'm just going to put my finger here a little past the edge so that I know where to fold it. Okay, so it fits on well. And now I just keep putting my finger where the fold needs to be. So that's 3. And I'm just going to fold and line up with the last fold. 4. 5. So see, I just have this little piece left over. So I had room enough to have that extra play. Okay? So I'm going to put it's my clear plate in the A. And you get a little instruction sheet that tells you what to do. And I'm going to try to do this so it's not too glary on you. And I'm going to put my fabric down. And even though I'm putting my dye on straight with my strip, I'm still going to angle it on my plate so that so this long side doesn't go into the machine all at once. That will make less of that popping and crackling. And I'm using the regular Gemini, so I'm going to be going in this way. So I can't have this little tail hanging over. So I'm just going to fold it up out of the way, or I could just cut it off, one or the other. But I am going to, I swear, every time I use this tape, I lose the end. So I want to make sure that I'm not past any of the folds. And I'm just going to tape that on. And then just the B plate goes on. So A first, B second, that seemed to make sense. And that's it. That's my whole fabric sandwich. And it fits in the slot. I can do like one hand in putting it in. I didn't want to put it any closer to the camera because I know it does make a lot of noise. And you still want to turn your plates and all that the same as always. Now, I want to leave this strip on here, and I probably should have done the other one first. I wasn't thinking clearly. And I'm going to take away, I'm going to hold the fabric, and I'm going to take away the dye and the extra fabric. And see that, that's nothing for waste. In my world, anyways. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I want to leave them all lined up. Now I can tell you let me set this aside for now. So now I can tell you the story of, see, you can see right here. Yeah. There we go. You see right there, these up here are wider than the ones down here. So originally, I thought I needed my 2.5 inch half square. Sorry, it took me a minute. To match up with this, because what I need to do is I need to cut the angle for this part. So here's my flying geese. I need to make sure I have the angle to sew the rectangle on. Does that make sense? Oh, hi, Cindy. So I pulled this out, and when I did my test, I put this on. Okay, I'm going to just set this right here because that'll make sense to me. But as I was rushing along, I grabbed this one and I put this on the angle, and I lined up or did I get that? Oh, let me do it this way. No, that's upside down to you. I'm sorry. So if I look here, I need my angle this way. So I just got to put it on an angle. I put my quarter square on, and I lined up the point with the edge of this fabric, the strips. And because this is 2.5, the very edge along here is like almost falling off, but it fits into that. So when I did that one, let's see if I can make a mark. See if I can show you the difference. So that's well, you can't see that, can you? So that's where that one's back, and I'll hold it up in a minute. So then I thought, oh shoot, I was supposed to be using this one. So here, on these last two, I used this one, and it lines up, I guess, which way? Oh, we're going this way. It lines up probably easier because it kind of fits into the corner of the strip. So now if I hold this up, so the outside, the mark to the left was with the 2.5 inch half square triangle. The mark to the right is using 1/2 of the 4.5 quarter square triangle. So whichever one you use the same one the whole time. I will say, so it's about a 1/2 inch total difference, roughly. So it's not that big a deal. Now, here's the difference that might help you decide. Let me just move this a second. These are the pieces left over, the ones with the point, using the quarter square 4.5 inch. Because you see, which way it goes, it went on this way. So you have that little point. If you use this one, you'll end up with a whole, however many you do the strips of, you'll end up with a whole perfect set of half square triangles. So you see the difference? So what you might lose in that, it's a 1/4 inch on each side, 1/2 inch total, you've gained a whole set of half square triangles that you can sew together or put in something. So then you have absolutely no waste. I'm not so sure about these. They're about the same size, but not quite. So I decided that I kind of like this idea better because then I have absolutely no waste if you're concerned with the waste. Does that make sense to everybody? So in your notes, let me get rid of those. You set those down. Hope that's how it worked. No, just kidding. Okay, so in your notes, after you cut your strips, I would use the 2.5 inch half square triangle that is the same instructions as in your Flying Geese that we did way back in the resource book. So to keep it simpler for you, if you go back to the resource book Flying Geese, you're going to use these two, just like the Flying Geese did, but we're adding on to this one. So I think that might make a little more sense. So again, I want to look at which side I'm on because you can't lay, like I can't lay the black and the white down together and cut them because they're cut opposite angles. So if you were using the same fabric here and here, this one would have to be right side down. But I find it easier once you make one, like a sample. I had a sample I saved out, now I've lost it, where I did one and one side was right side up and the other side was wrong side up, and I stitched it together that way to keep in my sample book to remind me that the one side has to be wrong side up, right side down, wrong side up. I'm using solid. Generally, a solid fabric doesn't matter. But I'm gonna put this on my plate, and I'm going to see. I want it to cut the same way, so I want to go right here, and you can almost feel that dye butting up on those sides because it's the exact same size as this. So its cut would be just past the fabric. Does that make sense? See, I lost my tape already. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm taking all my pieces. Whoop. I just, sometimes I think taping gets me into just as much trouble as not taping. Okay? No, I'm upside down. Do you see what would have happened? I would have cut over here. So I've got to remember the angle. The angle is what I'm paying attention to. The angle goes like that. Can you see that okay? So I've got to have it this way. And these, you notice these two corners. So this top corner is right at the edge of the fabric, and this one is on the fabric. So technically, I'm trying to keep it all on the fabric, or as close to being on the fabric. And if I didn't keep fiddling with it, trust me, it doesn't take long when you're not on camera. Okay? So once you tape it down, you look at your strip and go, yeah, I'm going on the right angle. And if you don't have any strips cut yet, just place this is the actual Flying Geese one. Just place it down because that's how it's going to appear here. See? I'm trying to make it so when you're all by yourself, you're not crying. Does that make sense? So here's my strip. Here's my flying geese. So I can see that my angle is coming bottom left to top right. All right? I love that. Isn't that a quick sandwich? Now watch. See, look. I got one hand right here, and my other hand just fed in that sandwich. And those of you that have cut fabric, especially with me lately, you know that it took two hands. So that it's pretty exciting. Okay, so now this is ready to go, and I know this looks kind of funny, but this one is ready to go. I'm going to set it right there. And here are those half square triangles, 2.5 inch half square triangles that are perfectly fine to use. So there's been absolutely no waste. That was pretty exciting. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I want to flip my plates. I have to see where everybody's going here. Okay. Here's my tape. Oh. Trying to find a place for my tape. Well, I'll get a new piece of tape. I worn that one out. So now I want to do the black strip. And this is exactly what I do. And black is just every piece of dust and piece of thread and everything shows up. So this is my strip, salvage to salvage. I'm gonna cut my salvage off. You're gonna be tempted to leave it on and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna cut that off. But let me tell you how many times that doesn't come true. Because, you get busy with you trying to make everything work and you squeeze a little more fabric and then you totally forgot that you had your salvage on there. So I'm just going to open so this is my 2 salvage ends. And this is great if you've got scraps too, small pieces or whatever. So again, I'm going to lay my die right there. Now, if you think about how little time it takes you to cut, you surely can spend a few minutes folding your fabric one section at a time. That's how I look at it. So I'm a little past, and you can see right there I'm a little past. And I would do this normally facing me. And you can mark out a measurement on your mat if you want to. And make sure that you've pressed out the center fold. So this fabric is a little shorter. So I just got to be careful to make sure. So I have nothing left over of this one. Oh, I know why. Has this ever happened to you? This was a first for me. I have a yard of the white fabric. And I guess it's the way they folded it at the store. So I ended up cutting it along the salvage instead of cutting it from salvage to salvage. So the distance of that is a little different. I'm laughing. I'm laughing at myself. So 2, 4. Oh, did I get 6 out of that? We'll see in a minute, won't we? Okay. And I would have folded it. Normally, I would fold it right on the plate. And remember, it's always a plate, not a plate, but plate A. And then plate B, got a little B right there. So clear plate, plate A, plate B, clear plate. I feel like I could say, look now, one hand. And I will tell you that my machine is not groaning and working real hard. So again, I'm going to hold this down. I can go ahead and take the die off, take the fabric off. Again, not much waste there. I'm going to leave this on. Now I'm looking at so if I have my dies laid out, okay, that was my white side, so I can put that right over there. And now I'm coming over to this side. So I can do just like my little picture is. Oh, didn't use that one. Oh, almost made a mistake. This one. See, be careful. Keep that right up there with that one. So I can look and see, because see, if I do it this way, it doesn't fit. Now I want to be facing that same angle that my flying geese is. And all you have to do is cut your flying geese first and lay it down, and you'll perfectly see how it is. So I'm just going to bring that over, and I don't want to put it this way because I would be cutting over here. I've got to turn it so that the straight edges are on the outside. So here's my angle. Here's my angle. Now I'm going top left to bottom right. Top left, bottom right. Does anybody have any questions? And when I take them off, remember, I'm always going to be turning my plates as I take them off so that when I pick them up, they're already where they need to be. Here's my whole set of half square triangles, which if you were making a quilt or something, these would be great as a little border going around. And it's kind of free, okay? So for the left and right, oh, look at this. Yeah, left and right. Thought I was doing it backwards. You're using your rectangle die, 2.5 inch, and your 2.5 inch half square triangle. Okay? So I can set those aside for now. And I'm just going to put this, I'm going to put one there and one there. And see, I can see, of course you can't see the black over. Let me do it this way. Now that doesn't work. But I can see there's my little hole that these are going to go into. So let's work on this part. And these, I think they call them ombre or gradient or some such. Come in all sorts of shades. And they could be not gradient to color as in like the, you know, like the color wheel will be. It could be yellow and green and whatever. So it's just fun because you get a lot of colors out of like a quarter of a yard or half a yard of fabric. Okay, so I'm looking at this. Let me push this down a little more. And I'm doing this exactly how I figured it out, how I was going to figure out how to do it myself, so that you hopefully understand along with me. So we're going to be working going down as the color gets darker. Okay? And at this fold, it's not quite centered. So if you look on this side, it's not quite as yellow. If you turn it over, it's a bit more yellow. So I needed to make sure that I didn't leave it on the fold. So let me just press that out. I want to leave that to remind. It's the only way I remember to tell you something is to leave it and have to do it for real. Okay, so before I go any further, does anybody have any questions on this part? And it doesn't have to be black and white. I just thought it was kind of cool that it was contrast of one color on one side and a different color on the other. And in this case, because I had that gradient fabric, I used the gradient. But these could be all the same color solid. These could be prints, however you want to do it. Again, I need a little best press or a little starch, and you normally don't spray on your wool mat. Well, they tell you not to. I happen to do it all the time. So a year from now, well, no, I've been doing it for a year. A couple years from now, I'll do a video on telling you shouldn't have done that. So I'm trying to tell you now. Okay, so I want to go down the middle of this white. See how white? That's white, yellow. Because my fold was way up here and there was no yellow on the other side, and I wanted them equal. If I'm going to do a long line of them, I wanted them to be equal within reason. I cut my strip I cut my strip 6 inches wide, so that's a little wide. You could probably go, no, you could make 5, but you see how little you've got on each side. But as you get used to cutting things, or as your day progresses and you get more comfortable, you can get a little closer. I just stayed bigger, so we didn't have any issues in class. I create enough issues in class without adding to it. So I'm looking at my mat grid, and I'm trying to put that yellow centered to that 1 inch, and then cut it at 1/2. If one's a tad more than the other, it's not going to matter, but I wanted a little bit of that yellow. Couldn't find my rotary cutter in each one. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay? Okay, so Gloria's asking, when you fold the black or the white and they have a right and wrong side, don't you get the opposite? Yes, that's correct. I'm glad you pointed that out. Yes, you would. So you shouldn't fold it, because then you're going right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side. So that's correct, Gloria. Thanks for pointing that out. I wasn't thinking. If you used a batik, generally it doesn't matter. But if you were using a regular print, then I guess, I would have to say, if you're using a print, you would be better when you make the fold. Oh, I just dropped a die. Oh. Let me put it in my basket there. When you do the strip and you're cutting the strip, you can fold it and it won't matter. But after you cut it, they've all got to be facing either all right side up. Well, you would have them facing all right side up, because then you would either cut on the left side or the right side. So I think if you have them all facing up, visually it's going to be easier to know where to cut. One side would be cutting off the right, and the other side would be cutting off the left, and keep them all right side up. But to do your actual strip, it doesn't matter. It's when you cut with the angle that it's going to matter. So if you guys are taking notes, I know Lynn does, after you cut if you're not using a solid fabric or batik or a fabric that doesn't matter which side you use, which generally those are the only two, then after you cut your strips, you're going to pick them up and you're going to put them all right side up. And you just got to be careful, that you line them up nicely. And generally, if you just take a couple minutes, you'll be fine. Because you don't want to cut one layer of fabric at a time. Now with these fabric plates, it recommends, what is it? It's on here, 4 to 8. And I did some 6, and I did do some 8, and they were perfectly fine. I don't normally do 8 of them, but I wanted to give it a whirl. So yes, print fabric or any fabric that has a right and a wrong side, when you fold and cut your strips, that's no issue. It's when you cut your angle that they all need to be facing up. So I'm trying to think, if it's easier, what would be easier? I guess it would be easier if you cut, okay, so let's pretend, and I know it's kind of hard to pretend, but in this case, but let's pretend this is our print fabric. If you cut, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this without, a lot of time involved. If you think about the bigger point with the die is to get it cut straight, and it's 2.5, you could cut 2 3/4 and just cut along your fabric and then pile them up and put this on. So you'd be 2 3/4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 7. You could stack them up, and they don't have to, if you cut them a little bigger, they don't have to be perfect. Stack them up where they're all right side up, put your strip down, your strip cutter down, and go. So whichever way is easier for you, and sometimes you don't know which way is easier until you have to do it. You know what I mean? At least that's how it seems to work for me. Okay, did that make sense? Oh, good. Thanks, Lynn. So you want to make a note on your, excuse me, in your notes that if you're using a print or you're using a fabric that has a right and wrong side, when you go to cut your angle, everybody needs to be right side up. It may be, I'm almost thinking it would be easier to rough cut the pieces a little bit bigger than your die, so 1/2 inch total bigger, line them all up on top of one another, then they don't have to be perfect, and then put this down. Then you can just leave it, because once it's cut, they kind of stay together, and do your angle. I think that would be the way I would do it. I try to go for it might take more work, but it's less fidgeting and less crying. I go for the less crying method. If you know what I mean. But thanks, Gloria, for pointing that out. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces of fabric, and they're exactly the same. So I can put one right on top of the other, because their color is the same the whole way. And let me go this way. Isn't that pretty? Okay, now the next thing I'm going to look at is, because I try to be frugal, is how many. So here's my plate. Here's my plate. And again, if you're using the bigger Gemini, you got longer plate. But today I was using I'm using the bigger Gemini, but the Gemini Junior plates. So if you had the longer plates, first of all, this could hang off, because your bigger plate would be going in to the machine like towards me. So this could be hanging off, and you wouldn't have to do those cuts. Make sense? Because if you're feeding it into the machine this way, all of this fabric's hanging down. You wouldn't have to cut this up into sections. You just keep working your way down. So if you have the bigger Gemini, the ideal is to use your bigger plates. Because mostly not because it's bigger, but because the excess fabric can hang off. Because you're only going to cut one triangle section at a time. Now, having said that, I'll just confuse the issue even more. Is I don't really want to just cut 2 layers. So in that case, so if I was doing a bunch of these and I had, 6 layers of this fabric stacked up, fine, I'll go ahead. But I don't want to cut just 2 layers. I want to cut 4 or 6. So if I'm doing that, no matter which machine I have, I've got to cut it up. It just depends how much I have to cut it up. So if your big Gemini plate ended here, then you would cut 1/2 and 1/2. Except you don't want to waste any. So I'm going to look, and I can tell that this die takes up about 3 inches. So 3 inches. 3 inches. So I'm going to cut this at 6 inches. And you can go probably one more with the with the bigger Gemini. With that new Big Daddy one. Shoot, that's, what is it? That can be 12 by 18. That's practically this whole piece of fabric. But again, sometimes it's more about the layers. Okay, so I just got to get my other ruler. And the reason I got this ruler is because it's 6 inches, so I don't have to fuss around lining up to my mat. So my little edge here isn't perfectly, there's like a little sliver hanging off of one end. Doesn't matter. I don't have to cut this perfectly. So there's 2 layers. Four layers. Oh, this is the one I did do, and I just moved my fabric off a little bit. There we go. I just have to press my little wrinkly ends there. Now, these aren't going to come out even because remember I moved the fold line. So I got one that's longer than the other. But I am going to take the time. Well, let's see if you can see. So there's my salvage. Can you see right along there? And you can't see it as well from this side. Oh yeah, there you can. You see all those little holes? So you want to make sure that, sometimes your salvage is a white piece and it's very easy to see, but the other side is generally more like this, or a shorter salvage, but it has more of those little pinholes. Those pinholes are where the rollers, when they roll the fabric and dye it and all that stuff, print it and all that stuff. That's where the rollers hang on. So a lot of times your salvage is almost like a different kind of fabric out there on the edge, and you don't want to use it. Sorry for the glare. You don't want to use it because it doesn't act the same as the rest of your fabric. All right, so I'm going to go back to lining up. And 6. And I should have just enough to get a cut out of that. Trying to figure out where to put things here. Okay, some things I got to put away as I go because there's nowhere else to put them. Okay, so I've got, let me bring my plates up. And again, you would be setting yours right on your plates. So 2, and they don't have to be perfectly lined up. I try to get as close as I can just to not have an issue. See how I've got plenty of room. So 2, 4, and I want to make sure that the gradient, the lightest part of the gradient is at the top. So it works its way down. So I wouldn't turn this because then my gradient's upside down. Okay, so that's 6. I guess I can go this way. Which way am I? Yeah. Because I'm going in the machine this way, so if I had some hanging off the edge, it would be okay. And I have to turn this towards me because I'm way off on my alignment. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, and this one is 8. And I'm putting can you see that this one, see how this one's shorter? So he has to be on the top so I can keep an eye on him. And I just I just make it. Can you see right? That's it right there. Didn't leave myself much there, but at least we got the cut. Now this one I will take. And I've got to make sure when I feed it in, I'm feeding it in so this that's hanging off goes through the slot last. I can't put it in first. It would get all caught in the rollers. And no, I haven't done that. God, I hope I never do. Okay, so clear plate, fabric A, fabric B, clear. Here we go. Does that make sense to everybody before I run it through? So this will give me 2 sets of that gradient fabric. It did that snap. I thought it fell out the back of the machine. I scared myself. Okay. So, I'm trying to grab everybody here. Take my die out. There's my fabrics. I'm going to get rid of these 2 purples because I can't get any more. See it? Can you see my little skimpy piece of end there? And now I can just move this up. Now, I might be able to get something out of these. I don't know. But for now, I'm going to move them up. And I'm going to let them hang off of that end. So I'm going to feed in this way. I've got plenty of room that I don't have to worry that anything's really going to move. So I don't even have to tape it. I am going to put it on that little angle. I got tape here, might as well tape it, I guess. Excuse me. So, clear plate, A, B, clear. I'm feeding it in this way, my left, because I have fabric hanging out on my right. Now, you've watched me, excuse me, let me get another drink. You've watched me over the last, what has it been, month or 2? And I'm turning my plates again. You've watched me over the last couple months and how my plastic, got all wobbly and the metal was, I really had a hard time holding things down. This is like a dream. This is like a dream come true. So if you want to save those sections and cut them out, I don't know if they'll fit. Oh, by golly, look at that. 1, 2. Well, let me run one through. Now, the gradient's going sideways, but we're okay with that, aren't we? I need to turn my plate, so. And there's enough room around. There's enough room around that I don't have to get real squeaky lined up. There's excess around. So let me just run that through. I swear when I tape, I move it when I tape. Now, is this right green? Right green going the right way? I don't know. I'm not going to pull it and test it. but I would use it anyways. Just got to, if this ends up out here being the more of the stretchy side, which it shouldn't, because we cut this way, we should be okay. But if it was, I would just have to be careful until I sewed something next to that section. So let's give it a whirl and see if we get some little extra pieces that can go with these black and white pieces. Okay, so Gloria asked, am I turning and flipping the plates? I do, and that's why I took the time that time. When I was leaving the fabric in to make the second cut, I didn't. And it seems to be fine. Here's my top plate. That's straight. Here's B. That's straight. Hold on. So look at that. So I'll be able to get 4 sets of these little guys. And if I wanted to, put a bunch together and they'd be gradient with the black and the white or a mix of the two or whatever I wanted to do, practically got a whole quilt going there. And if I do that, and I'm going to put a white with some and a black with others, I would just do it in between projects, put them in a box, zip a few up, throw them back in the box until you get a bunch of squares and you're good to go. So I really have a bunch of squares. So I'm going to just carefully, so that's the 2.5 inch half square triangle. And I'm going to take a couple of my clips. Normally I would do it right now and go ahead and cut them, because then you're not moving the fabric around so much. But we have other things we have to do right now. So I can go ahead and work with that, and then all I'll have left over is this little bit right here. That's kind of neat. Well, I guess I could have left it on the plate because I'm done using the plate. Okay, so the geese, 4.5 inch quarter square triangle in your basic set. Okay, we good so far? Oh, so if I didn't finish with the turning and flipping, because I was leaving that fabric and we made the 2 cuts, I didn't turn it and flip it. Oh, did I show you there's the A. So it's got a little bit of bow, but that'll go out the next time through. So I didn't want to move the fabric. So I did make 2 cuts before I turned it, but I really wanted to make sure that after that I did turn it. All right, so I'm going to set that right there. Okay, so I didn't have to spend time putting them away. I'm going to move this out of the way. Now, when I take these apart, I have to pay attention to the order that they're in. So so I'm going to start with my lightest one. So that's my lightest one. No, it isn't. Is it? No, it isn't. Here's my lightest one. So I'm going to have one that I'm going to sew now and one I'll sew later. Then my second pile is the next one. And then we go back to, no, for whichever way, for a second, it's going to go back and forth. And I guess I would place these, because I just have to, apparently, face down so that when I turn them over, they're in the right order. And then I'm going to come over to this pile, then back to the other pile. And these don't matter if they're right sides together or not. Though we did them all right side up. And then back to this one. And then the last one. Okay, so there we are. Because you know me, I have to set things up. I have to line things up all in order before I start. So I should iron out that. Caught me with a fold in my fabric. Oh, you're getting that. Where's that light coming from? Is that this one? No. Oh, I guess it's just the white. It looked like more glare. I think I have some more of these already. Oh, I had more cut, but I don't remember which. Oh, they're the correct size. Because I don't remember which size they were. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of one cut with the white, but I think I got more with the black. I did. I got two more. One more with the black. Just different. It's just because it's different fabric. Different fabric company, I guess it was, maybe. Okay? Isn't that pretty? Okay, so I would, no matter what I'm doing, I would line everything up so it looks just like what I really want to have. Okay? Is there any questions so far? We good? Okay, that means I just have to have a sip of my tea before I start coughing. Okay, so here's how I would probably sew this. So I might be tempted to go all the way down one side, but even if I was, and even if I was going to, I always complete one whole piece before I commit myself to the whole rest of it. Okay? So I didn't leave myself room to display, did I? So let me do this. I'm going to set this right on top of there because I'm not going to sew those. We'd be here all day. So I'm going to just grab this first one. And let me turn it towards you. See how that little notch fits right in there? Isn't that clever? It's clever now, but it doesn't work out when you flip it over. And you'll see. And this is very easy if you do. I was going to say if you do as I tell you, but I don't want to be that, demanding. So if you do as I suggest. So you think of this as column 1, column 2, column 3, like we always do. And I need a pin. Because I sewed wrong when I was working on this one time. So we need to flip this over. And what we want to line up is, let me see if I can come in a little closer. Don't concern yourself with this little bit here, and don't concern yourself with this little bit here. Okay? Generally, this little piece here is about a 1/4 inch pass, but we're not even going to concern ourselves with it. The only two things, and I'm really telling you, if you just, I'm going to say, mind your own business about this and this. Just don't even think about it. If you always line up this flat edge with the edge of your strip, and then just make sure you're lined up along here, your geese will come out perfect. Don't try to make this a perfect 1/4 inch up this end. Don't even worry about what that's doing. If you line up the flat, and I mean line them up exact, not a little bit close, not a little bit over, exact. And you're lined up along here. Remember, we're going to put our pin in, and we shouldn't be on a pressing mat, because I'm going to pin into that instead of you'd be on your regular cutting mat, so your pin doesn't stick into your sticking into the pressing mat. Okay? And I want you to stitch with the I'm going to call this the goose. I want you to stitch with this fabric facing up to you. So in other words, when I go over, I'm going to hold it this way. I don't want to do it this way. Okay? And I want to be careful, because see, we got to be careful. So when we get over to the machine, and I'll switch the camera in a second, we want our 1/4 inch seam. So my machine, Baby Lock Brother, well, it's not both, but it's Baby Lock, but if you have a brother, it's the same. I'm going into the Q tab, and I'm picking Q2 because I'm using my J-foot. Okay, so let's go over to the sewing machine. Okay, so I got my pin in, and what is that for? That's so we know which side we're sewing. I'm checking this. This is that little flat edge that I want it exactly even. That orange is exactly even with the white. And the only other concern I have is making sure that the fabrics line up here. It's none of my business what's going on up here, and it's none of my business about this little piece sticking out there. That's how I looked at it. And once I did that, life was good. Again, I'm not going to concern myself with the little fella that's sticking out there. I want to make sure that when I start stitching, that I'm on or pretty close to on my top fabric. I'm going to take my pin out because now I know what side I'm on. And I just want to lift to make sure. And when I put the black one on, I know we're white against white. When I put the black one on, you'll see more also. Okay? So my 1/4 inch. If you have a choice, do a scant 1/4 inch. And normally I'd have 2 hands, but you know I'm standing on one foot with my pedal, my other foot on the pedal, so I don't want to tip over. And it would always help if you have your needle threaded. I should have known because it sounded like it wasn't quite threaded. So let's get it threaded. That was just practice. Okay, so I have to take my glasses off to see. All right. Now see, I can't see on that white. And I'm just scooching it down. And I'm lined up. Let's try this again. I'm going to stop when I get a little ways down, or almost like I got an inch or so left, just to double check that my top fabric is lined up along the edge of the rectangle. Okay? And I'll do the other side, and you'll probably see it better with the black side on. And when I press, I want the rectangle on top because I want the seam to go away from the center goose. Had a little tangle there. So remember, just press to set the seam, open it up. I was trying to do it facing you, but just pressing that down. I feel like I got a little, I thought I had a little crease there. Okay, and then I'm going to set it back down, just like I would, so I would be put it back in the space, or I would just probably set it like this. So this is column A, column B, now C, and I'm not going to flip this over because I want to keep an eye on that corner. So I'm going to flip this way because it's that corner that I need to see. Okay? And we'll put one pin in. You shouldn't get confused what side you're sewing on, but, good habits. Okay, so I just have to turn it. I have to turn it now in my direction because I can't see to line up this side. Okay? I don't need to know what's going on up here, remember? None of my business. You're going to have the point of the white. You see it there? That's just a dog ear that's going to go. There's that little piece that we were worried about. If it bothers you, cut it off. It isn't going to make any difference. Okay, so we're ready to sew again. Now, last time we were sewing from the point down. This time we're going from the flat side up. And that's only because we want to have the triangle or the geese on top, because we want to make sure we're paying attention to that lineup of that horizontal line right there. Now, let me just check. I wanted to make sure I was lined up along that edge. Okay, I'm going to take my pin out. And remember, I'm on pivot, so my needle automatically goes down into my fabric. My foot comes up, so I've got my third hand helping me out. And all I need to do now is just make sure I'm lined up along that edge. Remember, none of my business what's happening up here. I can picture some of you at your sewing machine going, well, it's none of my business what's going on here, and somebody hears you say that. It's pretty, if you think about it, it's kind of funny. Okay? So let's go back to the work table. And again, I want the rectangle fabric on top, and I have to just turn it so I can flip it. Set my seam. So sometimes when you, or a lot of times, when you stitch, you get it, it'll be like a little bit wavy. Once you just set that seam, that waviness should be gone. Then I'm just going to flip that up, and I'm going to just take my iron and just push that seam open. So when I turn it over, you see the seams are facing out. If they were facing in, they'd be crossing over here, and we don't want it. That'd be too much bulk. Okay? Oh, look. This will make you laugh. Look. My geese are all stuck to the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one back up in order. Come on now, that's funny. And I guess I better make sure I put them right side up too. Okay, so I put the one I finished is back up the top. And I'm just going to do one more. And then I'm going to show you a little trim and then sewing two of them together. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? That wasn't, now come on, wasn't that funny, though, sticking to that? All right, it's funny to me. I'm picking up my next one. And I'm just laying it here. And I'm doing it this way so that you can see it. So I have to say it is pretty handy. Except all your stuff is stuck to the bottom of it. Oh, no, it stayed down this time. Oh, you know why? Because probably I pressed and the heat went through. Okay? Column A, column B, column C. I'm going to flip column B over A. I'm lining up that bottom. And again, you don't want to be on your pressing mat when you pin because it just doesn't work out well. If you're on your regular mat, your pin kind of skims the mat and goes where it belongs. Okay? And see how I made it all bumpy. But I'll fix it at the machine. Okay, so I know I'm in the right order. My pin is facing to the right, so I know I'm lined on my machine properly, so I can take that pin out, get it out of the way. I want to make sure, you got to be really careful with that white. I want to make sure that I'm lined up along here. So you notice once I'm lined up here, my finger stays right on that, and now I can lift up and see, okay, everybody's looking good. Pardon my finger for a minute there. And remember, none of my business. None of my business. I always want to make sure I have fabric under the needle. I'll work two hands this time. Hope I don't tip over. Okay. Back to the work table. I'm going to automatically flip this over because I need the rectangle on the top for pressing. Press to set the seam. My cord, my electric cord, is across behind me, and it keeps getting stuck on something. That's why it takes me a second. I'm giving this a little extra press because it had a little crease in it. Okay, and if we look over, you can see that we're pressed towards the rectangle. Okay, now we're going to lay it back down, put it back together like it's supposed to be. We're going to take B over C. So it's B over A, then B over C. Flip it over. Line up the bottom in this side. None of my business up here. None of my business with that little tiny triangle. And this time I'm not going to pin, only because I keep getting caught in the mat. And let's go so. So you just want to make sure you double check that edge and double check along here, along this right side. And don't go that fast. Okay. Press. Rectangle is facing up. And you know, you always want to start your best press or something, your fabric, before you cut, no matter how you're cutting, rotary cutting, scissor cutting, it just gives it a little more body. Flip this over. It's hard to see that black, whether it's creasing or not. Okay. Yeah, see, it's all picked up this time. I have to stay after school today and get that all stitched. Okay, so I'm going to just push those guys up there. And now I want to address cutting these. I only want to trim off the little bunny tails there. So I'm going to use my quick trim ruler, because it has, see right here? See how it crosses over? There we go. So I'm going to put the tip of my goose there, because I need that 1/4 inch for my seam allowance. And I'm not going to worry about whether I have this strip straight or not over here, because I am only cutting right where those little bunny ears are. Hold on 1 second. So I have Eleanor Burns' Flying Geese. Let's see if that works. Oh, there we go. Look at that. So that does the same thing. This one is the large, it says. So the Flying Geese, this red part, can fit. It's the exact same size. Now, what's the chances of that? And so you want where the Flying Geese meet on that triangle, and then you would just trim off your little Dog ears. I was thinking it was bunnies. So either ruler will work. If you don't have either one of those, you just want to try as best you can to have a 1/4 inch above your point. If you don't, then you didn't have your bottom matched up perfectly. Okay. Oh, needed my rotary cutter. So I'm just cutting right there. So I don't have to worry about getting these edges all lined up. I'm pretty straight right through here. Let me back up again. I just need to be straight through here. I'm not trimming all the way down. I'm just trimming to get those little bunny ears off. And so then it looks like that. And that's why you should do one first, one strip across first. Make sure you've got that 1/4 inch above before you start on the rest of them. I kind of just would mosey along and just take my time. I'd probably just do one strip at a time. Okay, so these two are going to be stitched together. So when you have all of this done, let me back up a little more, and you set them all back in order again, stitch them together in pairs. So this pair would go together, this pair to go together. Then you have 3. So you put, these are the top 2, then I would add the 3rd. Then the other 2 pairs, stitch those together so now you have 4. So then you have 3 and 4. And it's just easier to handle that way. So we don't have to line up a point with a point. We're just going to flip it over. And the only place we're going to line up is each of our edges. Because if our edges are right, the middle will be right. And when I do the edge, I'm going along this top and along here. And I'm just putting this pin over here because it seems to work better to just leave the pin in when you get to the machine. And we'll put a pin in this side in a minute. And I'm going to go down to the other end. Oh, I'll have a big mess here before I'm done. So you would have all your rows, your strips across, sewn together before you start putting them in pairs. Does anybody have any other questions while you're watching me pin? Okay. So we want to make sure it's white to white. Okay. Now we're going, okay, I've moved this around. Which side am I sewing? Am I sewing this side or this side? Well, if your white is on the left and your black is on the right, and you just peek in here and go, oh yeah, this one's going to flip up. The points are all facing up. So now I want to just make sure that it's nice and flat, and I'm going to put one pin in the center just so I'm lined up. I have to stand up for this one. Just so I'm lined up going across. And I'm not going to put it dead center with the seams come together. So now I know I'm sewing on this side. But what I want to do is I want to flip this over because I want to sew along. Let me just fix this. I want to, when I sew along, I'm coming across right where it's making a shadow there, but right Okay, you see how this stitch comes down? See, there's an X. We want to be just on the X or just a thread above it. And so it's easier if you can see it from this side because I can't see it from this side. Okay? So let's just go sew this together. So now I'm going to slow down when I get to where my little point crosses over, where X marks the spot. And I'm just going to slowly make sure I stitched in the right place as best I could. Now, can you see how I have that little bit of orange sticking out there? So my sewing before wasn't perfect. I'm going to pretend that orange isn't there, and I'm going to follow the line of my rectangle, my white fabric, for my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to get down near the end again. I'm about 1.5 inches away. And this is my last chance to double check that I'm straight here and I'm straight along here. So if I need to adjust, I can do that right now. Make sure you hang on to your fabric until it's past the needle. Okay, back to the work table. Take my other pin out. You know, if we sew, we press. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, let me move this up, that when I was lining up to do my trim, my edges of my rectangles were down or up or wherever they were, but they're nice and straight now. That's why I say you're not trimming out here when you trim this, the dog ears off. You're just trimming in this little section right here. And when you do one, you'll see exactly what needs to be trimmed off. Does that make sense to everybody? And you see, seams are facing out. So whether you have, let me see, we want to have it so the seams are facing towards the points. Because if I have the seam going this way, I'm folding back this whole bunch of seams. I had to remember which way it was going. So if I put the long side goose on top, so when I press, it's pressing up. Had to think about that for a minute. And you see what I went through to look. I just went like this, turned it over and go, yeah, that's the right way, before I get all willy-nilly with the iron. Sometimes we can avoid these catastrophes that we put ourselves in if we just try it and flip it and see if it looks right. Okay? And your edges should stay lined up, because remember, we're not matching the center. It's too hard to figure that out. We're matching the edge to the edge, which should automatically put this point centered to that point. Okay? And then when you're all done and you have the whole piece together, because it would make a block, it could make a long strip. You could have these shorter, whatever makes you happy. But if you get a set or maybe 4 of them done with opposite fabrics to put in your resource book, and make sure you make note on this one that you referred back to your flying geese earlier in your resource book, just as a refresher for yourself. Okay, so we'll go over it. 2.5 inch strip die. This is the longer one. This is from the Build-A-Block Plus. Or you're going to use your strip set of dies that you use for cutting strips, and then you'll cut your sizes down. This 4.5 inch quarter square die is for the geese themselves. And then to make the angle on your strips, you're using the 2.5 inch half square, quarter square, half square. Okay, so these guys go together. And you'll make sure that the only part cutting onto your strip is the angle. So if you've got your let's pretend this is the end. So if this is the end of your strip that needs to be cut, it's never going to be like this, where this is cutting. The only thing that's going to be cutting on the fabric is the angle. And I mean in the fabric. I don't mean along the edges. I mean like in the fabric. Okay? I think that covers it all. And let me just check and see if there's any questions. And look, still looking in good shape. And I know it's hard to show it to you, but can you see there's like just little lines? And actually, this is just fabric that just comes right off. So I'm not seeing it really cutting in. I can see little etches of it. You see, like right there. You see it? But if you ran your hand across, you can't feel it. And I've probably cut with this a couple dozen times. A, and then of course B's on top, so he's not going to have an issue. This one is heavier than B. They're both pretty heavy. When I got the package and I opened it and I thought, wow, what the heck is in here? And I got a little bit of a bow, but that just requires me to make sure I turn it. Okay? So if someone would stop by and sew these up for me, that'd be great. Okay, so let me just check. Anybody have any last minute questions? And again, remember, try to get as close to 1/4 inch above the point as you can. Do your first one and double check it. If you need to take a little bit narrower seam, then go ahead and do that. Better to have more than less. Okay? So for anyone that's joined in that might be new, if you would please subscribe to my channel, Miss Loreens Schoolhouse channel. I would appreciate that. Thumbs up if you had a good time. Hit the subscribe. I think that's the bell. You'll get notices when either I post a video or I go live. We'll be back next Thursday night at 7 for more Gemini die cutting. I have no idea what I'm doing. I may break out a different package of Build-A-Block dies. We'll see. And otherwise, I'll see you Saturday. Let me see. I don't work Saturday, right? Anybody know my schedule? Okay, Saturday at 1 p.m. for the sew-along. Like I said, we're going to do this, but not this week. I've got another project in mind. So I will post the information tomorrow afternoon on Miss Loreens Schoolhouse Facebook channel with the materials, because I don't have any way to post it ahead on YouTube. Oh, hi, Rose. Haven't seen you in a while. So again, thanks everyone for joining in. Hopefully you'll make a couple of these at least to put in your resource book so you'll have them for whenever you go, oh yeah, I remember that. I like to do that. Try to find some gradient fabric just for a little fun thing to do. You could turn it into a placemat, make a smaller one. You'd have to go down in your dimensions. I think we did a smaller one, a smaller flying geese in the resource book. I'm not sure, and I moved my book around. Okay, so again, thanks everyone for joining in. Have a nice evening. I'll see some of you Saturday at 1 p.m. for our sew along. Otherwise, next Thursday night at 7 p.m. And thank you all for joining in. Bye.